Hello, can anyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you.
Ah, very good.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Vice President Fielder, can you hear us?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm here. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yes, sir.
All right, Senator Molnar, I do see you've raised your hand. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, we'll call on you at the appropriate time, Senator.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Time is now 9:30 a.m. Today's date is January 30th, 2024. This is the time and place for our regularly scheduled business meeting. We are here at the Commission offices in Helena in the Bollinger Conference Room. I will call this meeting to order. Would my colleagues join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, thank you, colleagues. I will note for the record that Commissioner Pinocci, myself, Commissioner Bukacek are present in the Bollinger Room. Vice President Fielder and Commissioner O'Donnell are participating online, so we do have a quorum. Montana Public Service Commission welcomes public comment on any matter that is on today's agenda or on any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the Montana Public Service Commission. We will start with public commenters in the room. I see we do have one. Please come forward. Please, you know the routine. Please state and spell your name for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, President Brown, members of the commission. My name is Nick Fitzmaurice. It's Fitzmaurice. and I'm with the Montana Environmental Information Center. I had two things I wanted to touch on. The first, related to what was discussed last week. Just wanted to clarify something on the record. That was docket 2022-07078, Northwestern's application for authority to increase rates. This is actually related to the discussion back in October, and there is talk when the initial order was approved about the role of the Public Service Commission versus the role of the Montana Consumer Council in contested cases. And I just wanted to point out that as per Montana statute 69-2102, that it's the Montana Consumer Council's role to represent consumers when they are actively contesting a rate increase. Though when they entered into the settlement agreement, they were no longer actively contesting the case, and therefore it again became the responsibility of the Public Service Commission to represent consumers. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in that meeting about how it was not the Public Service Commission's responsibility. And I just wanted to point out that it should have been, and for that to be taken into consideration. And secondly, for the matter on the agenda today, docket 2022-09087, investigating into Montana resource adequacy and risk. We had a pretty lively discussion there at ETIC last week, and wanted to point out that Northwestern was able to buy energy on the market means that there's a system there that's working, though very suboptimally. There's a lot of room for improvement for markets and sharing power in these extreme weather events. There's the possibility of hedging to keep prices down, but there's also opportunity to engage in more advanced markets. And I know that the PSC and Northwestern Energy is looking into joining a day ahead market and the other options that might prove for more optimal resource dispatch, as well as keeping prices down as we're sharing power across the West. I will point out that as the cold weather system moved in a couple weeks ago, wind was exceeding coal generation in the state, and that's with pretty limited capacity that we have built out here. And there's an opportunity to build out much further additional capacity of wind and pair that with storage to have that renewable resource supplying the demand in the state. And it is noted that the wind died down when the cold front settled, but that's a good indication, one, for storage, but two, for that more advanced sharing and market system in the West, where as a cold front might move across a region, the wind is going to be available in different areas as that front moves through. And there's the opportunity to tap into that and really optimally share across the West. So I just wanted to point those things out as we talk about where the energy demand was met in this recent event and how we can plan effectively moving forward to more cost effectively and optimally supplied energy and keep the lights on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzmaurice. Any other public commenters in the room? Any other public commenters in the room? Seeing none. Public commenters online. Senator Molnar.
I'm assuming you can hear me at this point.
You assume correctly. Please
Yeah.
proceed.
Much like the previous commenter, public commenter, the very recent weather event of record-setting lows that resulted in a $17 million price tag. This would be an opportunity, I believe, to study what happened right, and what happened wrong, and what can be improved upon. Like no other. We don't have to look back 6 months and have people try to find their records. It should be at everybody's fingertips. Therefore, I believe that we need to have an in-depth study on current hedging capacities. There seems to be some discussion on whether or not there is any, but also including use and lack of use, perhaps, of 3-day ahead market, 2-day ahead, day ahead, and spot market when events like this happen. I believe we need to further understand any new difficulties in acquiring or counting on service areas or out of service area capacity and its cost effectiveness versus rate-based generation. With the often beleaguered Laurel plant, I think that we could use that as a current launch pad for investigating this against what just happened. How far ahead of known and predicted coming events? This event was predicted well over a week in advance by AccuWeather. I followed it. Should power purchases be acquired and calculated with the incorporation of current and increased intermittent generation in Northwestern Energy service area before cost effectiveness is compromised? As the previous speaker mentioned, there were times when wind overproduced and there was times it wasn't there. Well, how do you buy ahead when you don't know when that's going to be, when it starts, and how much it's going to be? There's going to have to be an attempt to do that. But at what point is it no longer cost effective because you're selling the high cost electricity because you no longer need it because wind flared up for 4 hours? What will the effects of growth of regional intermittent energy supplies on effective planning for high capacity energy be? When a coal plant is shut down and replaced by gas, the high capacity remains. If it's replaced by wind, our ability to buy excess high capacity energy is gone because they now have the same issues that we have. So with that in mind, I would also like to throw in maintenance of high capacity generation during highly predictable weather patterns. Should it have been forestalled until the springtime? Quite often there's excess energy at BPA that can use for backfill. Why in the world did anybody pick that? Was it more necessary than I'm reading about in the press? So I believe that a study group should be balanced but free flowing and perhaps with subpoena power. I, of course, would volunteer to be on the committee, but I think consideration should be given to MEIC, a technician from the Consumer Council, someone from the Commission, Northwestern Energy, and perhaps even the co-ops, because they have to bring in their power as well, and congestion can stop that. So with that, I close. Obviously, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them at the proper time.
Thank you for your comments, Senator. Could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. You'd think after 34 years I get used to that. Brad, common spelling, last name Molnar, Senator from Yellowstone County.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Good to hear from you. Additional commenters online? I'm being told no. All right. One more chance. Any commenters in the room? Seeing none. All right. Thank you for the public comment this morning. We have no changes to the agenda this morning. So let's roll right into our action items. Action item number 1 is approval of the commission minutes for the week of January 22nd, 2024. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the minutes for the week of January 22nd, 2024. And a second. Discussion, changes, revisions to the draft minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner Pinocchi's motion to adopt the draft minutes for the week of January 22nd, 2024, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. President, I'm an abstention on that. The minutes, once again, this week weren't included in the electronic packet that was sent out for today's meeting, so I have not reviewed them.
Okay, thank you for noting that. So note that it was 4-0 with 1 abstention by the Vice President. All right, let's move to work session item number 1. This is docket 2022.09.087. This is commission initiated. This is to discuss commission investigation into Montana resource adequacy and risk. To consider investigating actual resource dispatch and market purchases during the January 2024 cold weather event. Mr. Rosequist.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, commissioners. This work session is in docket 2022.09.087, the commission's investigation into resource adequacy and risk in Montana. As all of you are aware, on January 11th, Northwestern Energy provided commission staff with an informal report on the status of their electric and natural gas systems in Montana in advance of the extreme weather event that occurred over the following several days. Staff relayed the report to the commissioners on that same day. Now that the event has passed, staff recommends that the commission follow up with both Northwestern and Montana Dakota Utilities to obtain a more formal accounting of how their systems performed. We recommend that the commission request information in its open docket investigating electric resource adequacy and risk, again, docket 2022.09.087. In your work session materials, staff has included a draft letter for your consideration today. The draft letter is directed to Northwestern Energy and requests hourly information on loads, energy production, temperatures, transmission imports and exports, costs, information regarding the availability of coal strip, and actions taken by the Western Power Pool through the Western Resource Adequacy Program. The letter requests this information for the 10-day period from January 8th through the 18th. The letter gives Northwestern 2 weeks to provide a response. Staff recommends that the commission approve the letter and authorize staff to make non-substantive edits as necessary. You'll notice that the staff letter does not contain a signature. The commission has discretion as to whether you would like that letter to go out over the signature of me, for example, or if you'd like it to go out over the president's signature. If the commission approves the letter, then staff recommends authorizing staff to additionally prepare and issue a similar letter to MDU. The contents of that letter would be slightly different and would recognize the fact that MDU operates in an organized market and the transmission system is operated by a regional transmission organization. That's all I have, Mr. President, and happy to answer any questions unless Lucas has something to add.
Mr. Hamilton, anything to add? He waves off. All right, colleagues, I will move to approve the draft investigative letter and to authorize staff to make non-substantive edits as needed. I would further move that the letter be signed by all 5 commissioners if they so choose to sign the letter. Is there a second?
I second.
I'll recognize Commissioner O'Donnell on this one. So we have motion and second discussion.
Mr. President,
Commissioner O'Donnell?
thank you. Yeah, I think that the letter is really important to investigate Northwestern's tools on this and how they were used and how the market responded, how the RAP program responded to this. It's a very good case study. In addition to which, I have my screen just went blank right here. Hold on a minute right here. I do have a recommendation. There we go. I think this is appropriate also. The letter talks about Northwestern's generational ability and the RAP program. What I'm interested in addition to this, I think it fits in very nicely, is the robustness of the independent merchants, otherwise known as the market, to augment this. As I explained in my presentation to ETIC, last week, that what I'm concerned with is a regional cold front that would severely impact the ability of all the utilities to provide for anything that Northwestern would need after satisfying their own. So therefore, I would like to add to this. I guess I need to make an amendment to provide Northwestern's assessment of liquidity in the wholesale energy market and describe the basis for the assessment. I think this is important to get a good picture of all the resources that are available to Northwestern and to the co-ops, and therefore directly related to keeping the people of Montana from freezing to death. So I offer that as an amendment.
Could you rephrase exactly what your language you're seeking to include in this letter, please?
Certainly. Provide Northwestern's assessment of liquidity in the wholesale energy market and describe the basis for the assessment. To speak to this again just a little bit more is that I'm certain that
Just a
Northwestern is very...
Point of order. The motion needs a second.
Yes, Vice President Field, a point of order. I recognize you. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Mr. President, the motion needs a second before there's discussion, and I'll go ahead and second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Vice President. I'm certain that this would not be a burden for Northwestern. I'm certain that they are keeping a very good eye on everything that is available to them at different circumstances. So it wouldn't be burdensome to Northwestern, I'm certain, Mr. President.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the underlying motion. So Commissioner O'Donnell, will be really helpful in the future if you provide proposed amendments in advance so that we're all working on the same page, please. So can you read that one more time?
Certainly. And I apologize. I just came up with this language just moments ago. So again, the amendment would be to add to the letter another question: provide Northwestern's assessment of liquidity in the wholesale energy market and describe the basis for the assessment.
Okay. Any discussion on Commissioner O'Donnell's amendment?
Mr. President,
Vice President Fielder.
I'd just like to hear from staff if they have any comments on that motion that's before us.
Mr. Rosequist.
Mr. President, Vice President Fielder, I don't have any objections to including that additional question in the letter. So it would be fine with me.
Mr. Hamilton, anything? Nothing. All right, additional discussion? All right, seeing no further discussion. Oh.
Further discussion regarding this or the amendment?
We are on the amendment at this point in time.
Yes, sir.
All right, any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner O'Donnell's motion to amend the underlying motion to include to provide Northwest Energy's assessment of liquidity in the wholesale energy market and describe the basis of the assessment. Do I have that correct, Commissioner O'Donnell?
One thing, the language that I don't know makes any difference. I have the basis for the assessment, but of does the same thing.
Okay. All those in favor of Commissioner O'Donnell's motion signify by saying aye.
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 I'm hedging.
Do we need to do a roll call vote on this? All right, let's do a roll call vote. All right. Vice President Fielder.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Pinocci.
No.
Commissioner Bukacek.
No.
I will be an aye. Motion carries 3-2. All right, so we're back under the underlying motion as amended once. Discussion? Commissioner Bukacek?
Mr. President?
I just wanted to note that today that we're in agreement with both public commenters regarding in this letter, we're in agreement that it provides an opportunity for the commission to further examine resource adequacy associated risks to Montana customers, and requesting a formal accounting, I think is just fantastic. It's an exciting opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. I heard Vice President Fielder.
Mr. President, I'm just pleased that we have the staffing available to assist us with our efforts on resource adequacy. I know this is been an interest of the commission for at least the time that I've been on board these past 3 years. And I know we've had some challenges with bandwidth, but I really appreciate the initiative that's been taken here by the commission and its staff to move forward with this. And the more we can learn from the experts at the utilities about how they're managing these things, and the more we can assess what we might want to see done different. So I appreciate this and wholeheartedly support the effort. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Fielder. Additional discussion?
Mr. President.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes, thank you. Just to add my accolades to staff for the construction of this letter, and just to add that it is not only useful for the commission to understand this, but I feel it's very important that the public at large have confidence in the system, and that they know that there's robust efforts to provide them for all the necessities in cold winter weather, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Additional discussion? Commissioner Pinocci.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for staff, and this may be tough to answer, but I think the public, if they're listening today, would be interested. We're under construction with the gas fire plant in Laurel. If that was up and running, would that have corrected the whole problem, or would it have provided enough energy to supply? And I know that's a question you may not have an answer to, but what I'm trying to get at is I think Northwestern understands the need for more power, and I want to recognize they're working on that. But I'm thinking by next year, this plant's up and running. So for next winter, we'll be in a much better position. Does that sound like it's a good assessment?
Either one of you can answer to the extent you feel qualified to answer that question.
Mr. President, Commissioner Pinocci, I think what I would say is I wouldn't want to speculate at this time. We're going to gather the information about what resources Northwestern used to satisfy the loads during this period of time. Clearly, they had enough power to make it through, and we're just trying to find out more information about the source. Clearly, if Yellowstone was operating, it could potentially have substituted for whatever Northwestern did use to meet the loads during this period. But I think that's part of what this letter is about, is just identifying what those sources were at this point in time. Northwestern's resource plan has some information in it about what its capacity position would have looked like with Yellowstone counted, if that helps.
Thank you.
Additional discussion? Mr. Hamilton, do you want to take a stab at that?
Thank you, Mr. President. And just to follow up on what Will said and to respond to Commissioner Pinocchi's question, I would emphasize that the commission has not yet considered whether Laurel will be or Yellowstone County Jettering Station will be recovered from customers and rates, or what cost will be recovered from rates if it is approved for rate recovery. So because those are undecided questions at this point, it would be very difficult to come up with a comparison of what would be today.
Well stated. Additional discussion?
In brief, I just wanted to acknowledge Commissioner O'Donnell. He's the one that initiated our resource adequacy docket in 2022. And also echo Vice President Fielder's words about how passionate we are about resource adequacy, about ensuring it. And on our PSC website, under the column of what we do, that's what we do. So I want to acknowledge those two things.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Additional discussion? Additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of my motion as once amended, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying no. Seeing no opposition, motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Mr. Rosequist. All right. Seeing no further business to come before us today, I would just note for the record that our next commission business meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 6th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, February 6th, 2024 at 9:30 a.m. And with that being stated, the time is now 9:59 a.m. I will adjourn today's business meeting.